Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Life is Chess. How do we play if our opponent does not allow us to make brilliant sacrifices and combinations? How do we play if our opponent does not allow us to attack his king? How do we play if our opponent makes all decent moves in the openings and does not leave an obvious weakness? How do we play for a win in those cases? To see one such example, let's go over to Soviet Union in 1963, where two masters of chess, Semyon Furman and Ratmir Kholmov, played a very instructive game. Furman was white, Kholmov was black, and both these players were renowned chess players of their time. So let us see the game. Furman started with d4, black played knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4. This move is named after the great chess philosopher Aaron Nimzowitsch, and this defensive system is called Nimzo-Indian defense. The main idea behind this move is to control the e4 square with the knight and stop the move e4, because that would leave the pawn to be captured because the knight on c3 is pinned. So that is obviously the first idea, but more importantly, instead of the move d5, which used to be more popular during the early 20th century, Nimzowitsch analyzed the move bishop b4. The main idea of this move is not only to stop e4, but to leave these pawns on c pawn, d pawn as well as e pawn, very flexible. In future, according to the needs of the position, black can contemplate d5 or even d6 or c5 or sometimes even e5. So depending on situation, black can place his pawns accordingly, and that is why he develops his pieces to control center. In the following moves, both sides bring out their pieces. We shall see how. Right now, after castles by white, both sides have by and large brought out their pieces. They have castled very safely. Black's bishop on c8 and white's bishop on c1 are the pieces which are not yet developed, but otherwise the opening phase is by and large over. We come to a phase of the game where both sides would like to bring out the queenside bishop and develop a plan for middle game. Notice the knight on c6 is not very usual square for the knight, especially blocking the pawn on c7. In most cases, black first plays the move c5 and follows it up with knight c6. That would leave the c line for the rook. But in this game, black would love to play moves like e5, activating the e file for the rook. So in this position, the next phase of the game is very interesting, and especially the next two moves by white and black are coincidentally a6, h3, h6 and a3. Very surprising, both the sides have moved the corner pawns one square, the rook's pawns, and it is very surprising that these moves were played in successive, these moves were played consecutively, but all the moves have idea, specific idea. And let us start with the move a3. a3 not only attacks this bishop, it forces black to make a decision. If black captures bishop c3, white would capture bc3, and after that the cluster of pawns in the center along with this bishop which black does not have, white would bank on advantage based on these two factors. And well, black played a move which is very surprising at first sight. He played the move dc. The reason is, if black goes back directly, white has the option of pushing the pawn and starting queenside advance. But here black, first he played dc. It's an intermediate move. Before moving his own bishop, he captures the pawn and attacks white's bishop. And after white captured bishop c4, he dropped his bishop to d6. Now we see the significance of the move a6. After the move e4, white establishes a classical center and black blocks. Black plays e5, a very good move, because this move not only blocks white's pawn advance e5 but challenges white's center. Now we also see the bishop on d6 is a very essential piece. It supports e5 and holds black's position together. It also supports the c7 pawn. And the significance of the move a6 is white is unable to play knight b5 and capture the very important bishop or attack the very important bishop. And also white is unable to play a move which he would love to, bishop g5, pinning this knight, because of the move h6. So both the moves a6 and h6 were very useful. Black was preparing for this position and white played the move bishop e3. And now we see the significance of the move h3, because it prevents knight g4, which would harass bishop on e3. So all the four rook's pawn move were important. Black played rook e8, white also centralized his rook. And this is where the third phase of the game after the opening starts. It's black to play, and black found a very, very instructive plan. After white captured knight d4, bishop d4, we reach a very, very interesting position, that is a position of imbalance. Both sides have equal pawns and pieces, but on the queen side, black has 3 pawns compared to 2 pawns of white. So we say black has a pawn majority on the queen side, and on the king side, white has a pawn majority. White has 4 pawns compared to black's 3 pawns. So we have a very dynamic imbalance. Both sides have everything equal, but the pawns are more on the queen side for black and king side for white. It's black to move, and black plays c5, advancing his queen side pawns. White goes back bishop e3, and now as we can see, the e4 pawn is hanging. Black can capture the pawn. After knight e4, bishop e4, black wins a pawn, but white has a beautiful combination resulting in double attack. White will sacrifice his bishop, take back a pawn. If black captures the bishop, white can play queen f3, and it's double attack, attacking the rook and checking the queen. So after sacrificing a bishop, white will win a rook and the game. So black cannot capture the e-pawn, but black played the move b5. So notice the moves c5 and b5. Black starts advancing the pawns. White played bishop d5. He could have retreated his bishop, but even in those cases, black could simply play bishop b7 followed by moves like queen e7, rook to d8, taking control over the d file and advancing the pawns on the queen side. That is why white opted for the move bishop d5, taking a central square, giving his bishop for a knight, but at least having control over the central square of d5. Black played bishop e6, developing as well as attacking. White played queen to h5. And here black played another very, very instructive move. Black has not only 3-2 majority on the queen side, but he also has an active white square bishop, which white does not have. And making use of the bishop, he controls the d1 square, which is very crucial because, as you can observe, the only open line, the full open line, is the d file for both white and black. If white cannot occupy the d1 square with the rook, the d file will be left open for black's occupation. So we shall see how black moves inside white's position through the d file. White played the move queen g4, attacking h6 because this pawn is pinned, and black played a very nice move, that is queen to c8. Here black's queenside pawns are very easily, they are mobile, they can move very easily, and black also has control over the d file. So he simply wants to get rid of white's active queen. He offers an exchange, and instead of exchanging, white goes back to f3. Of course, it could have been exchanged, but that would leave black in a very dominating position because the bishop would occupy this diagonal and the pawns would simply start moving and rolling. As we shall see, white played the move queen f3, black played queen e6, centralizing his queen. White played bishop f4, at least exchanging one of the active bishops which black has. Black exchanged the bishop and occupied the d line. Black is clearly better because of his 3-2 majority, which is a mobile majority, and notice white's majority is unable to advance. White played f3. He wants to move his knight to e2. That is why he protects the e4 square with the pawn. Black plays rook d4. White does play knight e2, and black goes back. Black could have played queen d6, which I feel was even better move than the move played in the game, because after the exchange of the queens, the d2 square is open for invasion, and there's little white can do to stop it. But in the game, black played rook d7, white went back, and black played c4. So in this phase of the game, we shall see how black, after consolidating his position, advances his queenside pawns and achieves a winning position. White played knight c3. He could have played knight d4, but I think this was a better move than knight c3. But even in that case, black would retain advantage, because after capturing, black of course cannot capture because white wins a pawn, but black would play an intermediate move rook d3 and capture this b3 with a rook, leaving the b2 pawn very, very weak and vulnerable. Of course, black would have advantage, but in the game, knight c3 gave black an absolutely winning position. Black simply kept on centralizing his rooks. Look, the way black improves his position, he enters the position through the d file, and finally he keeps on played b4, and after exchange he played c3, creating a passed pawn, and this is an ideal position from a majority. Black has converted the majority into a passed pawn, and there's little he could do about black's advance. Black would simply play c2, and after due preparation would promote the pawn to c1. The game concluded. White played rook c1, and black once again, little by little, he entered white's position. Look at black's move. Very slowly he enters the position. He plays check, and all the pieces inside white's camp, aiding the pawn to advance. And look at white's pieces. They are on the baseline. White played queen f2 and then c2, after which white gave up. He resigned because there's little white could do about rook d1. Even moves like queen d4, queen exchange and knight e3 cannot stop the inevitable rook d1, and if white captures rook d1, black would promote, and after this black would be a piece of an elementary win. So friends, let's go back to the initial position. We shall see where white made a mistake and what white could have done to avoid this situation. In this position, it was black's move, and if you could recall, black had played e d4, a very critical move, creating a passed pawn on the queen side. Instead of recapturing with the knight, which looks very normal, white could have played bishop d4. This would have been a better move because that would threaten the move e5. Remember, white has a pawn majority on the king side, which he could not push in the game. But after bishop d4, black may capture knight d4, queen d4. Even here, white gives up his bishop, but his remaining bishop is very active, and he threatens e5, which is very difficult to meet. And in this particular case, it would be white whose pawn majority would advance before black's. So friends, I think through this game, you would have observed that black played a very beautiful positional game where he simply improved his position move by move, and without making a single sacrifice, he converted his advantage into victory. Remember, in chess, as in life, true beauty lies in simplicity. That's all for today. Keep watching Life is Chess. Thank you.